If someone is, downsizing or right sizing, or as you just said, divorce, which we were talking about is an unfortunate proportion of the winter market, the process really is about getting a plan and steps in place.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me today at Canadian Real Estate 101 podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for asking. It's holiday time, almost holiday time. And, December is a bit nuts, I guess, for everybody, even if somebody's not into home buying or is in home buying, in real estate, not in real estate. There are too many things happening, fun stuff mostly, but some stressful stuff too, which is also all right. So before we kind of jump into our episode today, why don't you tell us, our listeners, a little bit about you yourself, what you do, and what have you been enjoying lately?
Sure. I am the privilege of being a broker with Remax Escarpment, and I run a fabulous team of very keen agents of all ages and all backgrounds. So we find we can connect the right agent with the right person, depending where they are in their journey. And right now for December, I am just enjoying the fact that we're actually able to socialize again. And it's been great to be able to get together with friends and family. We're so excited. We always have a street party where we go from house to house, and that's actually happening again in our lives. So we're hoping the storm holds off for tonight and we can actually pull it. But it is always interesting in real estate in December because it becomes a bit of a pivot point for most people. I find, the new year always brings change for anyone, right? People start looking at their to-do list and their wish list, and it's when, they have the highest gym recruit days going. But for housing, I find people do look at their house and go, either I didn't need this big house because I'm not hosting 20 family members for dinner anymore, we're at our kids, or our house is too small, we want to have something bigger. It is a real pivotal point for people, depending where they are in their life's journey, and the house usually represents that. So we do get very busy at this time of year, whether people are out looking to invest, upsize, or downsize.
That's great. So I know, December 31st, that's when most of the people, like you said, revisit what they want for the new year and whatnot. Their bucket list might change depending upon what life situation that they might be in. And quarter one of typically the next year is their, making decisions on a lot of things. And before we were jumping into the recording, we briefly talked about how I was intrigued about the fact that January you receive number of calls, either about downsizing or whatever people are kind of looking into. So let's talk about that. So do you find like January, February is the time frame when you receive most of the calls and buyers are in the mindset of making the shift, what have you?
I don't think buyers are your keenest traffic in January. It's typically people who are homeowners, right? So we do unfortunately see in the winter a higher proportion of death, right? A lot of people have Christmas as a benchmark. We do see a higher proportion of divorce, and we do see a higher proportion of downsizing because people are traveling to hotter locations and they don't want to maintain that big home. So all these real life processes tend to happen, and they seem to hit us really hard in January. And I always say to people listing in January that you may not have the insanity of the spring market traffic with buyers, but the people buying are relocating, they're downsizing, they're new matrimonial couples, they're upsizing. You have big changes happening, and those buyers are really real, right? They're not just shopping the market trying to figure out what to do. And we always coach our downsizers to really take a look at what their financial position is with regards to their house. And you and I have seen so many changes just even in the last 6 months in the market, let alone the entire 2022 spectrum, that we've been really encouraging our clients, whether they bought a year ago or 32 years ago, just to reach out to us and get a refresh on the price and value of their home. Because we'll always come in and give you, the truth. This is, the reality of what you're sitting on, so you can better financially plan. So I find for January, people like to have that in front of them as well, because everyone wants to know where they're at, right? Like in January, you want to know what you weigh, what you own, what you're worth, you know, what you need to get rid of. And I find often starting with your house value is a good spot to start in January.
So if you remember our conversation, our initial conversation, I found you through, like, your name is all over the area that we are in Burlington specifically. So I was so impressed when there was a house that you had listed on one of the streets that we basically reside on. And that house was listed at about 3.9 million. And
Okay.
we were, it was shifting market at that point. Like, you know, there were houses in the market for over 30 days, which was so abnormal you know, coming out of that January, February timeframe. And the home that you had listed was beautiful, backing onto a park. It was listed at 3.9, like I said. And in my mind, I was like, there's no way somebody's buying, you know, for 3.9 in this market. And guess what? The house was sold in a week, like in 7 days, that house was sold. So I'm sure you know what you're doing. So
That was a great example, right? The market shifted so quickly, and we had all become used to this norm of the chaos, right? Like, put your house up for $1 million, it's going to sell for $1,250,000 overnight. And as that sort of started to wane off, sellers didn't want to believe it, agents didn't want to believe it, right? But it was happening so quickly, and the buyer pool was dispersing so quickly that what we really went into was digging into our databases. So people say, oh, I'm going to reach out to my database. And in most people's mind, that just means past clients. But for us, that means past agents, our complete network. So on that house, I actually reached out to a number of medical professionals that I was working with, knowing that the medical profession keeps expanding as our population keeps aging. And gave them the tour of that house electronically, knowing they, you know, were time short. So we're fortunate that we have marketing tools that allow people to sit like this and walk through an entire house without coming to see it. And it was interesting because we did end up with 3 offers on it, and all 3 of them were medical professionals. So they'd all come out of our network of reaching out to our databases through our medical professionals to say, hey, this is an easy done move in. You're in a great neighborhood. Here's where your kids are going to go to school. Look at your proximity to the 3 biggest hospitals around you if you're shifting into the area. So it just works, right? You have to know who to pick up the phone and call. I think too often as sellers and or as agents, we depend on the market to carry us, and you really can't. I prefer this type of market where I actually get to get my hands into it and work and get on the phone. My team will always call me a traditionalist because my favorite thing to do is pick up the phone and call someone that I think I can make a match for. And it doesn't matter if the person is connected through their agent, connected through one of our team members, or connected through me. I just want to get the right person in the house.
Yeah, and that's such a great thing. Like, and I'm shifting gears here, coming from a business owner perspective, especially with this generation that we are currently in. It's all about social media and, you know, FaceTime or picking up a phone call. Like, trust me, when I see my colleagues, they have such a hard time picking up a phone and making a damn call, right?
I know.
Whereas it is, I would say that majority of my closings have happened when I followed up time and over again through a phone and not through, hey, just a text message or an email or a DM and so on, right? Like, I think we are, the traditional method is very simple and it's extremely effective, but somehow I find that people are a lot hesitant when you know, picking up a phone. Basically, it's just a phone.
Got scared of the human to human contact, which is such a waste because you sit on the phone, you call Reliance, you call, you know, you call to order anything, and you're like going from one teleprompt to the next. And I'm like, please just have a person. I'm always the person hitting 0. Like, I'm like 80 or 0.
Yeah, same here.
My clients appreciate that they're going to get me, they're going to get my team directly with a human voice. Like, Sarah, our sign's fallen down. Oh, okay, no problem. We'll send someone over to pick it up instead of touch one if your lockbox is broken, touch two if you know.
Yeah.
And I do agents, and they'll spend all this time setting up the offer on their computer, and it's all detailed and it's all highlighted where everyone's going to sign. And there's a place for it. I absolutely agree. But at the end of the day, I want to see people. I want to like feel their heartbeat and know that they know that this is a serious transaction. Having them just click through something online makes me nervous.
Mm. Yeah, because you never know like how much attention they're paying towards what they are going through. And sometimes if you are not a kind of person who is visual, who is just, skimming through, like for me, I have to go through a sentence maybe 3 times to absorb what it is saying. Whereas I would get it so much faster if somebody walks me through it, somebody just reads it to me essentially and tells me, okay, here are the key points of this. So make sure you understand this. Okay, yeah, I get it. Kind of thing, right? Yeah. So it is, I mean, different people learn different or hear or understand things differently. So I appreciate that you kind of walk them through and take the time to walk that through with your clients. Yeah. Okay, so moving along, we have seen a huge shift in the market over the last 12 months. How are you preparing your sellers and buyers in this market? So say, for example, if somebody wants to, I don't know, sell their current property, they're getting separated, divorced, what have you, they want to sell their current property and kind of move into 2 smaller homes. So what's the process? Like, how do you guide them through? What does your process look like?
If someone is, downsizing or right sizing, or as you just said, divorce, which we were talking about is an unfortunate proportion of the winter market. The process really is about getting sort of your plan and steps in place. So it typically starts with a financial conversation. With regards to equity, we do lean on mortgage lenders, right? We do lean on our brokers and our partnerships to make sure that we have them set up for the right structure if they are planning on purchasing or renting. In a divorce situation, for example, we look at the equity, know that it's going to be split 50-50. And then there's a whole bunch of personal factors that come into play. Is someone going to stay in the area? If there's kids going to a school, is someone going to stay in the area because they work in the area? Often that is the case. So sometimes we find someone buys a permanent resident, keep an address in the school, and someone does a rental. But after we go through someone's financial process, we're really splitting this up in the sense that if you're a buyer, we're looking at where is that down payment coming from? How are you going to structure for the next 5 years? Where are the best investment locations? What's affordable for you? With some of our young first-time home buyers, we've gone as far as saying, okay, buy this new build. It won't be ready in 2 years, but you can afford the payments, right, for the next 2 years, and allows them to get into the market, even if it means in 2 years they're selling that to buy something more in the area they want to be in. So there's all, depending where you are in the buying process, there's a number of different plans that you have to follow. But other things that we're dealing with our first-time home buyers is they are getting loans from family members because there is a lot of wealth sitting in our downsizing in our baby boomer generation that they're loaning that out from their property. So there is these mom and dad bumps that we keep seeing. And there's now longer amortization periods. So we are able to help some of our first-time home buyers that way plan out their process as well. And then sellers, once we've established that they financially can afford to move, pay off the debt in the house and or buy something next, then it becomes the whole marketing staging process, which is probably another call.
Yeah.
Probably too.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that a seller should keep in mind, moving into, again, it was a seller's market. It was a great seller's market. Are you seeing, like, how are you coaching them in terms of the expectations that the market has completely shifted? Do you feel resistance from the sellers at this point? And what are some of the key things that sellers should keep in mind when you're suggesting them in terms of pricing and how long it might take and so on?
Well, the big changes from in the chaos of COVID, it's funny that we've all made that the norm when it was such a small blip in the actual market scale, right? Like when you look at the last 5 years, COVID's like a 30-second blink. but we prep our sellers that there is no more room for error. So you can't come out to the market with, dog poop in your backyard is always the fun example that I use, or a purple room. You have to prep your house for sale. And that's where we're fortunate that we have all those resources that work for us, and in-house designers and stagers that can give us the best recommendations for people to put their best foot forward. And then beyond that, we have now a seller that we're saying, hey, 6 months ago, you could have sold that purple room and now you can't. The expectation is showing them, and it's really quite simple when we show them the average of what was selling during COVID period versus what's selling now versus what was selling pre-COVID. You can still see the upswing in pricing from 2 years ago, right? I'm most of the neighborhoods I'm working, I'm seeing anywhere from 10 to 12% as an increase from 2 years ago if I cut the COVID period out. So it just becomes really sharing the truth of what's happening around that seller's market area. And if they don't want to hear it, then, they're going to be challenged because they're going to come out of the gate with a much, much higher listing price than they should be. And that typically lands you at a lower selling price because people will let you sit there stale. They'll watch the sign swing. As you said, you've seen many in your neighborhood swinging. And they're not going to get the traffic they need. And then the one person who will come 60 days later is going to give them such a low offer that they'll be completely insulted and sideswiped. So as an agent, I don't feel like it's ever worth setting someone up for unrealistic expectations. Just show them the truth of what's happening.
Yes, and that's the key, integrity and just being honest and sharing your opinion about what the current situation is and what kind of market we are in. And I think the education piece is the most critical, instead of giving them fancy ideas or fancy dreams and expectations that, yep, I can get this done, just to get the listing out of them, right?
No one wins, right? I could tell someone their house is worth 2 million, and someone else could tell them it's worth 2.5 million. Now I trust my opinion because I've typically either gone and been in the other houses or sold them. But if I'm not that agent, I've certainly followed up with those agents to find out, well, why did that one sell for 2.5? Why did that one sell for 2.2? You find out that there's some backstory on some of these high prices. So as long as you can bring those details to the current seller and say, that's great that your neighbor sold for 2.5 million. Did you understand that they also sold, 2 cars with the house or all the furniture in the house? Sometimes there's those caveats that can skew pricing in an area. And as a listing agent, you should always be delving into those so that you know where that seller stands in comparison to the properties that have most recently sold.
Yeah, no, that's a really key point. Now, in terms of buyers, a lot of buyers are kind of sitting on the sidelines, like they're ready, but not really ready. They're ready in terms of they know that they will be pulling a trigger at some point. They're just somehow trying to either time the market or seeing what further correction or crash might apparently come. What are your thoughts on that? What would you want to say to, say, for example, a buyer who has their pre-approval ready, who knows exactly how much amount they're looking at and how much they can afford, but is just waiting at this point? What are your thoughts? What would you want to say to that buyer?
I think that there's a lot of buyers that became bitter during COVID, because you'd be standing on the street as 10 people deep, 20 people deep, and you'd be told that your agent would come to you and say, do you have another 100,000? Do you have another 150,000? Or even another 10,000? You'd be like, are you kidding? So I think that group feels like, wow, we finally have some control, right? The real issue is, I think that with the interest rate hikes, we've done a really good job of shaving off sort of that 35% climb that we had during COVID. It's come down 25% again in most of the neighborhoods that you and I work in. So I don't think that you're going to see another 25% slide. I think the government's intention was, how do we cut off the wart that was COVID? How do we cut that pricing off and go back into the normal scale if COVID wasn't there? And that's where the numbers are sitting right now. So I'd say, buyer, if you're pre-approved, the reality is, if you're waiting for the spring market to slide again, most buyers are out shopping in the spring market. That's what pulls buyers out, right? whether you're not even intending, you're just researching. That's when they're out. And at the end of the day, Ontario continues to bring more and more bodies into our province that are looking for homes. And we still have a housing shortage from the people who missed out during COVID, right? That wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had thousands and thousands of people looking for residents. And those people are still there. I go into homes every day where there's adult children living with their parents, right? That need somewhere to go, need some type of affordable housing. And in pockets that we work in Halton, the reality is they're premium pockets to live in. So if you're trying to buy into these pockets, there's still going to be someone else who lost out on those areas that's trying to get in as well. So if you're pre-approved and you can put your money now at a decent rate, right? At a decent interest rate and an actual negotiation, why wouldn't you go into an area that's going to only increase in value in the next 3 to 5 years while you can, before the spring market hits or before the market starts to increase and you're back to competing on those properties?
Yeah, and I think that's the key message. Like, if the area that you're looking into is going to hold the value over the next 2, 3, 5 years, because real estate is a long-term game anyways. Like, you will be speculating if you're just buying and flipping and then kind of doing all that kind of strategy. It works great in a different kind of environment and different timelines, but as of today, I would say in any market, buy and hold is the best strategy in my opinion. Either if you're living in a house or investing long term anyways. That's what we kind of believe in and have been living by, and we have seen tremendous returns on our investments over the last 10, 15 years and so on. So yes, absolutely. You need to have a long-term horizon in mind, and seeing that if this area is going to appreciate based on so many other factors, then it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like in spring, all you're doing is basically waiting to compete against other more motivated buyers and putting yourself into that situation as well.
Yeah, you've got to buy in, you've got to buy into something, right? If you're sitting on funds that you can put into real estate will always come back up in Ontario. Look at the long term on this, right? And see where it's been running. Take COVID out of your cycle and look at the long term. And long term in real estate is 3 years, right? You're going to make money in 3 years in Halton. Pick an area that's transitioning well and that holds great value, and wow, you get to buy right now without 10 other people jumping on your back to buy against you.
Yeah, you don't want to be in that situation.
No.
It's not fun. And especially, this is perfect time where you can have all kind of conditions on the offer. That's the critical thing, because my heart would skip a beat when in January, February, March of earlier in this year, when they were going offers with no conditions, no financing, no inspection. And after the fact, there have been so many cases where people have moved in and found so many defects in the property, and they can't even go after the seller, right? Like there's no, well, you decided to go without that. So, and I can literally count on my fingers how many cases I had heard in those situations. But
or people just didn't know the areas, right? They were just buying because it was like buy.
yeah.
Have time to visit the schools, visit the parks, try on the golf clubs. How far does it take me to walk to Starbucks? They have the opportunity to try these things. And yeah, let's put a condition on financing here and make sure that what you're buying appraises out for the right amount of money.
Exactly.
The risks are gone as a buyer. You have the time to actually shop properly.
Yeah. And in my opinion, this is like the ideal time for anybody who's looking into purchasing their next home, downsizing, upgrading, or whatever kind of family home or first time home or investment as well. I think this is a great time to look into it. Interest rates, yes, there will be temporary, but the location, appreciation, and if you're putting your bucks towards the right area, then the market will definitely come back at some point.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I've called every investor on my docket and said, hey, what are we buying this year? Let's go.
That's great.
And rentals are up, so because our first time we're unable to afford on a regular basis like they were even just 6 months ago. So rents are up.
Exactly. Okay, great, Sarah. Now, you and your team are in Burlington and serve Oakville, Burlington, Hamilton area, and so on. Do you want to share your contact information? How can you and your team assist with selling or buying if anybody is looking in that specific area?
Absolutely. So we do cover Halton, and we're fortunate because there's 12 of us, and we do specialize in each little pocket so that, if someone's looking in Hamilton, we do have an agent that covers Hamilton and knows the area and knows the other agents there, so they can find out what the properties are that are coming on market or ones that canceled and expired, how we can get access to those as well. Our contact information is really easy. It's teamlogue.ca, teamlogue.ca. Our office is open 24/7, so it's easy to come through the website and call us. There's always a live person here. We're fortunate for that. That's my anti-technology piece, but I do like technology. And at the end of the day, there's a full sellers and buyers process that we take people through. And it's a nice initial meeting just to outline what your financial position is and how we can better it, right? How can we make our clients create wealth is really our mandate, and make sure that they're moving forward in a positive direction and they're not caught in some of the chaos that we just saw. We backed a lot of clients out of chaotic situations, and I refuse to put people in a situation that's not going to give them forward momentum. So again, we're happy to take people through both those processes at any time. And my direct number is 905-630-7022. I'm got my phone on me all the time. It's blowing up as I'm talking to you.
Fantastic. I really appreciate it, Sarah. Thank you so much again for your time, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. Enjoy. Take care.
You too. So there you go, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Sarah Logue. She is a fantastic realtor out here in Halton and Hamilton area. And like I was saying earlier, I've seen her signs go up and the listings do get sold pretty fairly quickly. So I'm sure she knows what she's doing. And if you have any questions for her or her team, do give them a shout. The contact information is shared on the show notes as well. And I hope you enjoyed this. That's it. That's all for today. I hope you have an awesome day. Enjoy holiday season, and we'll see you soon.